This is Brian V at Whywework, and today I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with my cousin, Courtney Blackburn. Thank you very much for coming, Courtney.
Hello, how are you today?
I am still doing well. This is take two. One moment ago, I did forget to press record, and Courtney was kind enough to play it over again. So this is take two.
All
So,
right.
Courtney, I am very happy. I'm still just as happy to have you here. And as I asked a moment ago, could you explain to me a little bit of your journey of work, when it started, and how old you were when you
Yeah.
first started?
So I was 15 when I got my first real job at Shoppers, and that was working with your mom. She was the one that gave my resume to the bosses and everything, and taught me everything I knew there. So
You
that
say
was
real job. You say real job. Did you do something minor, like in
yeah.
your terms before that?
Yeah, when I was younger in the summertime, I would work in the canteen while my brother played baseball.
Okay. Okay.
So I would just have, like the calculator and
Mm-hmm.
selling spits and gum and stuff like that.
So was that a paid position, or was it just helping the team out, or?
Just helping my family.
Okay.
Dad's side there, they own that field and they do a lot of work there at the Penzance field.
Oh yes, very familiar with
So
the Penzance fields.
yeah, so I used to work at that canteen in the
Wh-
summer for my Uncle Bob.
Why did you decide to get a job at 15 then?
Uh, I really didn't like asking my parents for money.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be able to just, if my friends wanted to go to the movies, I wanted to be able to go and not have to be like, Mom,
No, no,
can
that's a
I
good
have
way to do
some
it.
money? Yeah. So I tried to get a job right away. And there was also something I wanted to save up for. I can't remember now what it was.
Hmm.
Probably a computer.
So as you went through work at Shoppers, how did you find your first work experience? That's 4 years, so that's like into your almost when you're 20. So that's a
Hmm.
good chunk of your teenage years. How did you find
Yeah.
working at Shoppers? I know, actually, obviously my mom worked there, but a lot of people who work there, like high school friends and people acquaintances that I've met through your, not necessarily through my mom, but it seemed
Mm.
like a pretty good place to work.
Yeah, it really was. They took really good care of you. Um, there's always,
Yeah,
scheduling
yeah,
issues,
yeah.
stuff like that, just your typical corporation problems.
Hmm.
But as like giving experience in
Yeah,
all areas, I was a supervisor, so I worked with deposits. I worked with
yeah,
the money and setting everything aside at night and balancing since I was 15. So accounting is the schooling I went for.
yeah.
um, but I also worked in the cosmetics portion of Shoppers. I worked in the photo lab and in receiving, and I was a cashier and I helped in the pharmacy.
Did that lead into you going to school? You mentioned taking accounting. So
Mhm.
did that job lead right into, or did you get another job in between going to?
I had a small job while I was in school. Um, I did leave Shoppers to go to school.
Okay,
And then while I was in school, I got a job at Black's Photography
very good.
in Sunnyside Mall, and that wasn't the greatest place
Uh-huh.
to be. And then I left there and went to same day dry cleaners, and I was there for 8 years.
What made you take accounting? What was your purpose and goal of, so you went to school for accounting?
I went to NSCC for business, and
Yes.
then the second year you have to concentrate.
Yeah.
And I concentrated on accounting because it came so easy to me. Numbers are very, very easy for me to understand, and balancing is something like I kind of have an obsessive personality, so balancing is something I'm really good with.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah, I was very good at it, so I
did
liked
you
that.
did you graduate from there and then pursue something in accounting? Did you go down
I
that path?
tried. Yeah,
Okay.
I tried. I did end up kind of with a bad work term.
Okay.
So I ended up in an IT department in the federal government instead of an accounting department. So it kind of
Okay.
really messed up my credentials. Um,
Did
and
you did you choose that? Um, did you choose
I
that
had
department or did you have a choice?
I had two choices. I could have
Okay.
done a 15-week thing with Red Bull
Okay.
where 5 weeks were unpaid for the term, and then
Mm.
you were continuing filling in a maternity leave. And it was just for invoicing,
Yes.
basic stuff like that. But I also had this offer from the federal government, but I wasn't told it wasn't really accounting related.
Accounting, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of was. It was just the IT department wanted a budget done up, but they thought that would take me 5 weeks, and it took me a day. So it
The
was
funny
it
thing is,
was
and I was
it,
gonna say this, but like you said like I think I forget the word you said, but like balance sheets and stuff, just easy stuff like that.
mhm.
I think you were like extremely confident with numbers.
Oh yeah,
Like you just said
yeah,
you had a 5 week internship and it took you one day.
yeah,
So how
yeah. But
have you pursued? Like what have you done since your internship? Has it been anything to do with money? Like anything to do with account? Because it doesn't come naturally to very
no,
few people does it come naturally to, right?
I thank my mom for that
Yeah.
because mom's an accountant too. So I think I get my ease of numbers from her. But yeah, I ended up to how many years ago now? In 2016, I
Yeah.
started working at the credit union.
Oh, you
Um,
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
a
I was
that's a
a
bank
teller.
for a local bank, yes. As
Yeah,
as a teller.
and yeah, just a first grade teller.
Mhm.
Just customer service.
You'd
I'm
be
good at it.
no, yeah, that I mean, not everyone can be a teller in a bank, right? Like that it
Yeah,
takes some talent. You can't just say I mean, maybe some people can just say, "Hey," but you need some skills and they're going to test those skills. They're going to find out what you can and cannot do and you're dealing with other people's money. So I wouldn't say,
yeah.
just a teller. That's like a mom saying, "I'm just a
It's
mom."
just a mom.
Right?
Yeah,
Like it's
true
very
enough.
it's very, very important, right? Like that's where
There's
many of our solutions and problems come from the bank, and you were right
yeah.
in the thick of it. How did you find that job? How did you
My
did
mom.
no, sorry, yeah, okay, your mom, but how
Mhm.
did you find working in that position? How did
I
you feel
loved the
comfortable there? Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
I definitely loved the work. I can't say I enjoyed being in an office
Yeah. It's
environment.
it's tough.
Yeah, there was a lot of, politics and clickiness and
Yeah.
disagreements, and
Yeah.
I'm just there to work.
Yeah.
So it was weird in that way. Um, and then I got very sick, so I started to do up a Bible for them for my what I do for work there.
Mhm.
Because I do a lot more than what a teller does. I'm one
Okay.
of those people. I do the so-called bitch work, if you will.
You did up a what for them? You mean like a manual?
A manual, yep,
Yeah, a manual
of
on
how to work the ATMs, how to balance about 5 different spreadsheets, and step by step on how to do things that we don't get very often, like certified checks or um, things like that, because nobody knew how to do it.
so what
So
led you to do that?
I was asked because I was being called in sick, or I was calling in sick quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they asked me because they were having so much trouble when I wasn't there. They had asked me to write up that Bible just in case.
So it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna give you some work. We miss you, Courtney, and we can't do what we need to do without you. Can you show us how to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, and God loved them. I loved the work. The work was wonderful. It's just very different being in an office after 8 years of working alone in the dry cleaners. I was by
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mhm.
And I had a second job at that time as well. And I worked at Izzy's Bagel in Bedford.
Okay.
And that was 4 years that I worked two jobs.
Did you find that you were helping organize the dry cleaning place as well, or were you just sticking to basically labor work, or did you find yourself looking in the back room and
No,
organizing?
yeah, I was I don't like to sit still. I'm not the type of person that likes to be paid to do nothing.
Mhm.
And essentially working at the dry cleaner, I got the job so I could do my homework at work.
Yeah.
Because it's a very easy job. There's really not a lot to it.
Mhm.
And then once I finished school, I loved it there. I didn't want to leave. And had they had the option of like medical benefits
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that, I'd probably still be there.
So from the jobs you experience, what is something that you felt was just too much, too hard to handle? Is it the office itself, or is there something more from the
It's more
jobs that you
like,
mentioned?
yeah, it's like at the credit union, for instance, there's a lot of very serious rules that we have to follow. Obviously, we're dealing
Yeah.
with people's money. And there would be times where I'm following the rule and the supervisor would come up behind me and make an exception. And I really hated that.
Can you, because I'm learning that it's best not to make comments. So can you explain to me how you feel about people making exceptions to rules? Because I know I have my own feeling about
mm,
that, and I think I agree with you. But how do you
hmm
feel about, okay, I'm told if I don't do this, I'm going to get fired. And then someone taps me on the shoulder and says,
Yeah, we'll do it this time. Yeah, I absolutely despise that. If there is a rule, we're supposed to follow it. And
yeah,
one of these rules in particular was if somebody had a deficit in their account, you couldn't cash your entire check. You have to fill the deficit. And my supervisors would come up behind me and say, "No, just put it through the savings where there's no deficit."
yeah,
And it's like, but now she's getting like, I don't understand. You're not helping her. You're not helping us. We're losing that money, and she's going to get an overdraft charge at the end of the month. So why are we making an exception?
yeah.
It makes everything worse, and then they expect it every time.
Yeah, I guess there could be a lot said to the things
Yeah,
that
I mean,
happen like
there's
that.
circumstances,
Yeah.
obviously, where things need to change. There's obviously circumstances where we made a lot of uh, exceptions because of deaths,
Hmm.
or there's lots of good reasons to make an exception to a rule, but not just because you know that person.
Yeah. So you
And
like consistency.
consistency, yeah, that's a good
Consistency
good
is so
thing.
nice, isn't it? What is
Yes.
what is something that you found that you enjoyed from shoppers to 15 or even working at the baseball games through your time? What is something that you really enjoyed, and then maybe even what you're up to now? So what is something that
Hmm.
you really enjoyed and what you're up to now so we can get a good perspective?
Sure. While working, my favorite portion of every job I've ever had is making people smile. I absolutely adore being a customer service representative. Um, there might be a lot of what have you, Karens and Kevins out there, but there's so many more nice people that make customer service worth it. And every maybe 10th person might be kind of rude or
Hmm.
whatever, but when you have those nine people before that
Yeah.
that are smiling just because you remembered their name, that's a wonderful feeling for me. So
I
I do love that.
It is, yes, it is quite enjoyable. What is it you're up to now? Because I think you alluded to it, but what is it you're up to now?
Now I am kind of focused on, I'm in disability, like on disability right now from work for don't even know what yet, but
Yeah. Hmm.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I've been working on a YouTube channel um, curious chronic. It's essentially what my aim is to try and get the stigma of mental health
Yeah,
to
so
go
Courtney,
away.
before we get into your YouTube channel, and I'd like to hear
Mm,
about it, the mental health and being on a disability, can you speak to that? Because I think,
mm-hmm,
like, I don't want this podcast, I don't mean this episode, but the podcast to be solely on, okay, I have a job, I'm successful, I'm doing well,
mm-hmm,
follow me. And I don't want it to be like pity me or whatever, but to understand people behind this screen or behind the voice. And you can see,
mm-hmm,
well, this person's going through something who, I'm going to put words in your mouth and say, you obviously love to work,
mm-hmm.
right? You love to be with
Yeah,
people, and you have
I
a
do.
lot of talents, and you have a lot of skills, and you have a lot of abilities that a lot of people don't have. And math being primarily one, you're good at math and you're good at customer service. Those are
Mm-hmm,
two real good high qualities of why people probably hired you and will hire you in the future if you so choose to do so. But
mm-hmm.
what you're saying now is, right now there's something going on and I don't know what it is, and it's inhibiting me from doing what I really want to do.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Could you speak to that
Mm-hmm.
and say how hard that is not to be able to go when you want to go, or do this and it's just not possible right now, to the people who are listening and will say, hey, I feel just like that.
Yeah. That's mostly what I aim to do is show people that, just because you look okay, just because you can smile, it doesn't mean you're okay. It doesn't have to mean you're okay.
Hmm.
Everybody with mental problems or stunting of any kind learns how to hide it. Uh, and I definitely trying to deal with anxiety. Anxiety has been the most prevalent thing in my life through all of my life. So
Yeah.
I had to learn how to get over talking to strangers when I first started at Shoppers so I could be a good customer service representative,
Yeah.
because talking to people was so difficult for me then.
By the way,
And
by the way,
mm,
you're doing a great job right now.
well, thank you. That's
I,
good.
I, I I had a lot of no's from people like, no, I couldn't do that. Well, Courtney, the one that says that she can't go do something now because she has anxiety, is doing a very good job. So,
Take that, Ma.
oh, I'm sure
Yeah,
she's
no,
very proud of you.
she is. She wouldn't come on mine either, so don't worry. A lot of people don't want to talk about, especially mental health. A lot of people don't want to admit when they have an issue.
Hmm.
And that's what causes more issues. So I think the 8 years that I worked 2 jobs, I also volunteered at that time at Christmas time for Santa's helper. I was the Easter Bunny. Um, I worked myself to death for like 4 or 5 years. And then when I started at the credit union, it was like a really big slowdown.
Mm,
And I really started to notice how not okay I was. I was so busy before that I didn't really notice.
you start to know how you really felt.
Yeah. And it was like, I don't know if, like, when I was working at the credit union, I have a I feel like it's a good habit, but it's always been treated as a bad habit. But I don't have that thing in my head that says that's not my job.
You
If
always wanted,
something, yeah, if something needs to be done, I'm going to do it.
yeah.
That's I'm being paid to be here. I'm not being paid to sit down and talk to my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a lot of pride in being an active worker, being somebody that's present and there. And when I couldn't be anymore, that's when I got put off. I was becoming a liability because of my brain fog.
Can you think of how you actually feel about being withheld or pulled back from work? Like sitting here now,
Oh, yeah.
how does this, what would your ideal world be? If you could push away whatever troubles they may be, what would be ideal for you, Courtney?
Well, right now, I just started donating to CAMH, Canadian Association for Mental Health,
Yes.
and I've been trying to get in to start volunteering with them
Yeah.
from home, because I am having a lot of trouble having no work.
Mm-hmm.
So I create work for myself. I do a lot of crafting. I do a lot of cleaning and baking, and
In what way are you having trouble with not having work? Is that a financial thing or mentally or like in
mentally more. Yeah,
you're like, I have to do so.
yeah. I got to do something. I can't just sit and do nothing. And um, it's hard when you're dealing with disability. You have to deal with a lot of second guessing,
Yeah.
stuff like that. They don't really believe you. I understand why.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They get messed around a lot. But when you're somebody that actually does need it, it gets difficult. And trying to explain to somebody that, yes, in fact, I do want to be at work, but all my doctors say I physically can't, is hard to process for them. They don't understand that, like, I'm not happy at home. I want to be working.
Well, I have to make a confession. Sometimes I see people park in the what we would say handicap zones or
Yeah.
blue wheelchair zones, and I'm skeptical, right? I'm just like looking, like, does this person
Do
have a
you
problem?
really
Do
have
you
problem?
really have a
Yeah.
problem? And many times people look like they don't, but we have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what generally for that, I always look for a placard if they have the little plaque.
But do you know, and the
But
point
yeah.
being that, we kind of try to look for something, if someone says they have a problem, something very overtly obvious. And I
Mhm.
think the idea of something deeper than that and even more inhibiting, we're not so quick to say, "Oh, I gotcha." We're not as
Yeah.
welcoming as that possibility. So, what is this with your YouTube channel? What is the name of, like? So, if someone wanted to contact you, what is the name of your YouTube channel?
I actually go on YouTube by Marie McKinnon,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and Curious Chronic is the nickname.
And what do you hope to accomplish with it, or what are you doing with it so far?
So far, I have simplified some of the mental health courses that I've taken online,
Mm-hmm.
with CAMH, and then I've spoken about my own experiences with each of those areas, like addiction, um, depression, anxiety, teenage years, all that kind of stuff. I also have a lot of vocal a cappella covers.
Okay, you're singing.
And yes, yes, that's something I used to enjoy a lot. So I got back into trying to cover songs again, and that was helpful for quite a while. It's
So,
still helpful.
if I mean, I hope all the best with YouTube, but even something like this, I have a full-time job, right? I
Hmm.
have to do. If you could do both, I mean, if you could just do that and that's what you were successful at, or that's what you were content with,
Hmm.
what would be a perfect job for you besides that? Where could you see you striving and excelling?
Insurance. Yeah, yeah. I think I would go into insurance
In what reason would you like insurance? You, you
because
you know we
I've
have an
done.
uncle. We have an uncle who's a retired insurance man. He could
Yeah,
probably, I mean, even just go hang out with him. He probably has lots of time to just give you
yeah,
some pointers and talks and um
yeah,
but for
for
what reason,
sure.
insurance?
I think, I mean, when I had my car accident, it was just a minor one a couple years ago. I had so much trouble with my insurance company, and they just,
I never heard that
I
line
was,
before. I had so much trouble with my insurance company. That
I
seems quite
was trying to get less money from them. Like they were trying to write off and take my
Wait,
car.
wait a second. You don't hear that very often, though.
No,
You
they
know,
wanted to give, yeah,
I
they
want
wanted
it
to take my
less from you.
car.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, don't take my car. Like, my
They
boyfriend's a
wanted to give you
mechanic.
cash, and they just write off your car
Yeah,
and give you the cash for it. You're like, no, I like my car. Thank
no,
you.
it's my car, and there's no way it's written off. So I
So
did, that was a long process to go through, and I would love to make that somebody else's experience with an insurance company a little easier.
is there something in it also that's more appealing? I mean, because you could change the world doing any sort of job with that, like making
Hmm.
someone's people, there's lots of weddings, for instance, people have a
Hmm.
miserable time. You could make someone's wedding better, right? And that's a
Yeah.
wonderful, beautiful sort of thing. Insurance
Hmm.
is usually dealing with their problems, but helping them is good. But is there something else appealing to insurance, like insurance salesman or working behind the desk? Is there something? I'm thinking there might be
I'm
something.
Yeah, like probably a claims person,
Do you
somebody who
find it would
opens
be
and deals.
do you find it would be a little faster pace, say, than being a banker, right? Like, especially if
Oh
you
yeah, with the credit union, we're also we're very kind of out of the way. Don't have a lot of walk through traffic.
yeah.
Most of the work was over the phone or email,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a lot of not seeing people.
Mm-hmm.
But still a lot of customer service, and I was okay with that. So I'm thinking, being behind a desk on a phone wouldn't be so bad. I just, I don't want to be like a telemarketer.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Have
Mhm.
you been able to, from home, look at different types of jobs like that, like insurance companies? Have you just kind of dipped
Mhm.
your toe in the water and considered things? Things I
Yeah.
mentioned before is like LinkedIn and Indeed and those. Would you need some certification to do that? Is there something more that you're going to have to do, or would you meet the basic requirements to knock on their door?
I actually meet for TD insurance specifically.
Yeah,
I meet their basic requirements
yeah,
and more because I worked as like my position at the credit union is called financial services representative one,
yeah,
level one.
yeah.
And at TD, a financial service representative is a level three,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives me a boost to go to claims adjuster, which is a level six, and starts at double my salary right now.
So you actually looked a lot into this, especially if you're talking about level one. So
Yeah,
so you have
I have a
looked. That's
friend.
good.
Yeah, I have
That,
a friend that works in TD insurance. They are very helpful towards, especially for people with disabilities
yeah.
or things like that, and their work insurance is through the same insurance as mine. So I would actually apply for something called intermittent absences, meaning that I'm allowed more sick days than most people, so that if
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can't do it, I can't do it, and I can't get in trouble.
I mean, we'll close it here soon, but I think it's really interesting because you're in the situation where you want to do something, but you can't for whatever reasons.
Hmm.
Like, so in this job, how does it really feel right now knowing that you are completely qualified to do something? If you were able to take the step out in the right direction, you could probably get the job.
Hmm.
And what is going on in your mind or in your heart of like, I want to, but I can't.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
And you're not
It's
the only one experiencing that, right?
No, no, certainly not. I know Dad has really struggled. Um, and I mean, I'm sure I get my work ethic from a mix of Dad and Mom and your mom, and like I'm a very hard worker. And one of the problems that comes with that is they tend to keep really good workers on the bottom,
Hmm.
because when the bottom runs really well, the top runs really well. So I don't ever think I'll go anywhere being there,
Because you're good.
and because I'm
In
good.
in the insurance company, you mean, or
No,
any job
in the credit union,
in your credit union? Yeah.
yeah, in particular. Yeah, and I mean, knowing that there is something that's physically stopping me from going to work, and having with, especially with COVID and having to deal
Mhm.
with all my doctors over the phone, none of them can see me. I'm not allowed to go to the hospital. I can't get any testing done. I can't, right now, I'm just at a standstill until we're free to open up the hospitals again. Uh, but I did just have an appointment with a rheumatologist over the phone, and that's an immune system specialist. And he's actually finally focused on my case and is actually kind of duped by it and really wants to figure it out. So I might have an answer coming soon, which would be really nice. But the mental portion of my issues, I mean, I've had anxiety my entire life, but I never debilitating,
Mhm.
never too crazy. If you asked my friends, they would tell you I'm the most outgoing, fun person on the planet, but really, I'm really shy. I don't, I don't really like to talk, but if I know you, I'm okay, kind of thing. Um, but when I first got diagnosed, like they actually gave my mental problem a name. I think kind of was like, shit, nobody's gonna take me now, you know.
Mhm.
Like it was really really hard to deal with the label more than anything. um to know that I'm off work on paper because I have anxiety and depression and what have you, and it's like kind of makes you feel like a baby a little bit, like,
Yep.
yeah, it makes you feel like you're being babied because it's nothing you can see. Everything going on with me is all internal. My pain is internal. Everything's internal.
Yeah,
So,
because you're suffering from physical pain as well. Is that not
yeah,
accurate?
yeah. And there's a very high swelling indicator in my blood as well. So we're not sure what's swelling, but we know it's not my Crohn's disease. So,
On top of that, you
yeah,
have Crohn's.
yes, I have Crohn's disease, and I've just been ruled in to fibromyalgia, but he realized that they really haven't ruled anything out. And you can't diagnose with fibromyalgia until you rule out everything else.
What would you like people to know in your situation? And we can't put you in a group of people and say this is all people who are experiencing some sort of disability are feeling the same way, but you might have a better um, road towards this feeling than most other people who are just seemingly living day to day with less troubles. I think most people
Hmm.
have some troubles. But what would you like people to know about, not necessarily you, but it could, obviously it's going to include you because it's your answer, but like to know about someone in your situation? What would you like them to know? So it's kind of like, from my perspective, sometimes like, just back off, okay? I
Yeah.
know what I am feeling, so just back off.
Yeah.
But what would you like someone to know so they just have a little better understanding so that they can be more compassionate and caring and kind, and maybe stay out of your business, but just so
Hmm.
they understand this is where you're coming from. Is there anything that you would like people to know?
Yeah. I mean, if you love somebody or you're friends with somebody that has any kind of mental issue, whether it be bipolar all the way over to anxiety, no matter what, you gotta love them. That's the only way that they're gonna ever get better, is if you just have to love them. You have to support them. And then if you're the person with the problem, you have to own it and treat it and accept it
Mm,
in order for it to get better. It took me a long time to accept that I was afraid of crowds, that I had a I have been diagnosed with agoraphobia, which the fear of crowds, which
mm.
extends now to I'm a little nervous to leave my house. So it all kind of piles up after a while. Um, but my biggest suggestion to anybody that's just now starting to feel nervous or starting to feel a little depressed or starting to feel different mentally, to reach out immediately. Don't let it suffer. Don't let it just split, because that's what happened to me. I bottled everything up. I let everything just simmer inside me. And then there was a point in time where my body gave up. I was vomiting out of nerves every morning before I went to work. And it just, my brain couldn't handle anymore. And that's because I was not accepting that I had these problems.
You couldn't bottle it in anymore.
Yeah, I didn't have any room. It exploded. But when it did, that's when I got really, really, really sick. And I would recommend to anybody dealing with these feelings to talk about them.
Could you also, like, I know of a situation not far from me that someone had problems, and we tried to bring them to many different places. Can you,
Mm,
like, because you're suggesting someone, if you have a problem, go somewhere. Can you suggest some places they may want to go?
yeah, online is really your best friend right now,
Mm-hmm.
especially during COVID. I spend a lot of time on camh.ca, camh.ca. It's a Canadian Association for Mental Health. And they have so many resources, so much information, little courses that you can take,
Mm,
not only to learn about your issue, but also how to handle your issue as well. And you can go to Canadian Mental Health. Um, there's CAMH, and then there's Canadian Mental Health Association. So
mm-hmm.
it's CMHA. That's the
Mm-hmm.
Nova Scotia branch kind of thing. They have all accessible mental health areas on those websites, and all clinics, all free clinics. And I mean, if you're in my area, the best thing you can do is go through Cobequid Mental Health.
Mm.
I just helped a friend do that. She was having a lot of trouble with her family doctor. So we called Cobequid Mental Health, um, and got her an intake interview. And now she's seeing a counselor regularly. And it doesn't cost her anything.
I think that's great
Um,
advice. It
yeah.
seems like, I mean, some people would not know the amount of resources available to them. Like thinking one, it's only me that feels this way. No, and
No,
there's
no.
lots, right?
Yeah, I would say anxiety, depression, and any type of mental weird feeling is more common than any illness you'll ever find.
And there's so many resources. It doesn't matter the province, the state, around the world. Most countries deal
Mm,
with things or have resources available.
hmm
It's there's so many. It's just they're not advertised on billboards.
No,
Not
no.
too often, right?
It's still a little bit of a stigma, right? Like, I just finished dealing with a situation where a friend of mine is quite scared of me,
Mm-hmm.
where she doesn't really know how to handle
Mm-hmm.
somebody who can be suicidal,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. She doesn't know what to do with it. So, um, it's like, okay, well, this friendship isn't healthy for me.
Mm-hmm. It's hard
Um,
too, right? You'd have to see,
yeah,
like, if someone doesn't know, depending on how they grew up, how do I don't know what to do. I just want to
yeah,
do the right thing, but it's hard, right? And it's a learning
yeah.
process for everyone involved. What
And I
would
would
you, go ahead.
for, yeah, people who are friends with someone with
Yeah,
anxiety, if this person is flaky, they're going to be flaky. They're
yeah,
going to bail. They're going to just not feel like it.
yeah,
And, all you can do is just be there for them when they're feeling up to it.
yeah, yeah. And
You know,
meaning you have your days.
yes, certainly. I have my
We
days
all have our
where,
days, but in
yes.
the,
Oh, yeah, that's common, you just not having a good day or what, especially right now, the whole world is dealing with their first bouts of anxiety and depression because of a pandemic, and um I think that was another reason I wanted the channel to start, was for people who are dealing with it for the first time, that don't know what it is, because a panic attack feels like a heart attack if you don't know what you're going through.
You
Because
mentioned, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say it's just it's good if people know, like there's a episode I have of what a panic attack feels like, so that you
And
can.
it's that's your day, and don't bring it back up to me tomorrow saying like, "Yeah, I'm sorry," right?
Yeah.
It was one of those flaky days, and just toss that off to the side and remember me, who you enjoyed and liked and loved in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Just remember, I'm trying to get back to that person,
Court,
and
go
nobody
ahead.
wants this.
No, yeah, like you don't want to be you don't want to be in pain. You don't want to be, as you said, the word flaky, but I think
Hmm.
you don't want to be absent-minded to the people who care about you and who you probably care about even more, because
Hmm.
you wish the relationships were how you
Yeah, I
want them
wish I
to
could
be.
show up in the relationship the way I wanted to.
And
And
it's difficult.
it's yes, it's very hard. And lost a lot of friends over the last couple of years, but it just really shows you who understands, and better
You
for it.
you mentioned um, working when you were a kid in the baseball fields.
Yep.
In sports, there's always good athletes, and then,
Hmm.
I mean, not necessarily professional athletes, but just there's teams, high school teams, middle school teams, and there's always the starters, and then there are the kids that sit on the bench who, you know, just wish they could be out there and playing with the team.
Hmm.
At the moment, it seems like you're on the bench not being able to work.
Yeah.
There are lots of people out there who work that might be just kind of passing the puck, tossing the
Hmm.
ball, pick your sport, pick your analogy, and not playing well or discouraged. They're out there on the field and they're like, my job isn't so good. And what do you have to say to them as you're on the sidelines wishing that, I mean, you can think of the kids on the side of the plexiglass, like banging on the glass at a hockey game, a good old hockey game, like
Hmm.
just wishing they could be out there, like they would give everything they had just to skate one more time or pick whatever.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you, to me, minus everything that is negative, would be first in front in line to get back out there and to work. What would you say to the people who are out there and really not doing well or just discouraged? They're finding themselves slipping into a pattern of discontentment, or they want to change your work. What kind of advice would you bring to someone that's playing the game that you wish you were playing?
Definitely make sure you are doing something you like. If you're not happy, look around, find something else, because honestly, driving yourself to the ground for a boss is worthless. You're always replaceable. It doesn't matter how good you are replaceable. So you have to enjoy what you're doing. And I think that is stupid important. You need to like your job. You don't necessarily have to like the people you work with, but you need to be able to put up with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is something that's toxic in a workplace, get out.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Mm-hmm.
out. Don't stay in that toxic environment, because it won't get better. But like I said, no boss is going to kill themselves for you. So don't kill yourself for them. That's very, very important.
That's extremely important. Courtney, where besides your YouTube channel could people reach you if they wanted to get in touch with you on social media or something? Do you have any hashtags or
I
tags?
do. I'm on at Curious Chronic XX on Instagram, and I'm Curious Chronic on Twitter, and Courtney Marie Blackburn on Facebook.
Curious Chronic. Courtney, could you answer these two last things for me?
Of course.
how has work helped you through your life? And finally, why would you, in your case, because I usually say, why do you work?
Mm.
Right? And you are working with a YouTube channel. Believe me, I know it takes work.
Yeah.
Why do you want to work? So how has work helped you through your life, even some of your struggles that you've been through? And
Um,
why do you want to work?
I have this incredible ability that not many people have, to be able to leave my home life at the door of work,
Mm-hmm.
go in and work, not think about outside of work, come back, drop my work life off, and pick my home life up. I'm very good at that. I can keep everything separate. And I think that's really important.
It
If
is
you let,
extremely important. Yes, it
yeah,
is.
if you let work get to you personally, it's it's just gonna make you miserable no matter how happy you are doing what you're doing.
So
Um,
that is how work has brought you through, because you were able to differentiate between the two.
yeah, yeah. It's it's hard when you can see, like, you're being used, you're being either underutilized or
Mm-hmm.
underpaid. If you know what you're worth, I think that's probably the biggest suggestion. Just know what you're worth
Mm-hmm.
and don't settle for less. And that's actually that's a lesson that your mother taught me. I will never forget. She walked out one day at Shoppers because the bosses couldn't get along. And
I don't put that past my mom.
yeah, well, she was great because she had like four people telling her to do four different things, and there's four bosses, and she was like, you know what, you guys get your stuff together, and I'll be back tomorrow. And I thought, oh man, I wish I was like
Gumption.
brave enough to do that.
That's
But
my
it did
mom.
make a change. Yeah, it did
Mm-hmm.
make a change. They got
Together.
more,
Cohesive.
together. Yeah, yeah.
Co-
Then some things moved around, and it went back to normal.
Courtney, why do you want to work?
I want to work because I really enjoy people. Um, I'm one of those people that I can say in the same breath, I love customer service. I'm not a big fan of human beings. I
Uh,
can say that all together, but because of customer service and the people that I've met, uh, I'm stronger today for a lot of the people that I've had to deal with. I've got a nice thick skin now from dealing with
yeah.
angry people. You spend so long dealing with either their money, their clothes, their food. You get some angry people. So
Court-
it's definitely give me a thick skin.
Courtney, I truly appreciate this talk, and I would like to have you back on in the future when you have some news to tell us.
Yes,
Whether
I
it's your
would love to.
YouTube or you have a job, or maybe you found some reasons for some of the troubles that you're going through now. Either way, I'd love to have you back on.
Perfect. That sounds
Perfect.
great. It was nice to be here.
Thank you, Courtney. You did a wonderful job, and I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thanks,
Thank,
Brian.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.